The media world, actually the entire world, still reeling from this shocking news about Tucker Carlson getting the boot over at Fox. What really went down? Don Lemon, meanwhile, same story over there. I think that one's a little bit more self-explanatory. Meanwhile, Joe Biden, I guess the guy just can't take a hint. Nobody wants him to run, but he's running anyway. Is this going to be another Biden-Trump matchup? And new news to tell you about over at Anheuser-Busch, another marketing executive is being this time placed on leave. We're into it today here on the Trish Regan Show. Welcome, everyone. I am Trish Regan. Good to have you here. As always, portions of the program are brought to you by Legacy Precious Metals. If you're investing for the long term, it's something to look at. And you know what? You can do it all right there at Legacy Precious Metals. Go to legacypminvestments.com. You can buy and you can sell silver and gold, all right there. You can also get gold-backed IRA. You can do it online or you can call them at 1-866-589-0560. Gold is something that has certainly been very much in focus as many of us worry about the future health way down the road about the U.S. dollar. So for those looking to invest long-term, many are looking to gold. Go check it out, legacypminvestments.com. We begin today on Tucker Carlson. Again, you know, this is just a fascinating story because we don't really know what went down. I can tell you as somebody who used to work at Fox, there was a lot of effort that went into protecting Tucker, protecting his show, making sure his show could rate, making sure that he was a success. And in some ways, he had carte blanche. I mean, free reign to do almost whatever he wanted to do.
I want.
Really and truly, whatever he wanted to do. In fact, so many of the things that he had said, people deemed as extraordinarily controversial or based in some conspiracy type things. And look, you know, the other side was doing it too. I mean, how many times did we have to hear about Russia from Rachel Maddow? So it is shocking. It's stunning. It's very, very surprising that they would choose to part ways. So you got to say to yourself, what really was going on there? I mean, I can tell you, I think that there was no management, certainly no management, because management would typically try and protect their talent and maybe make sure they weren't out on the limb on certain things that were going to create a whole bunch of controversy. But I do believe that they have been through a lot of challenges as an organization. We all know that. And as a result, there was kind of a, you know, inmates running the asylum sort of approach at times.
Insanity.
Not insanity.
And because Tucker's show was so successful, this is the business angle here, it was critical that it continued to do well, right? That's sort of all that mattered, because when people call up their cable company and they say, I want Fox, it's because they want Tucker. And so even if advertisers weren't advertising on his show, it didn't matter because Fox was getting all the cable fees. And the cable fees were what really paid the bills. But if people couldn't get Tucker, then would they really still demand for Fox News on the dial? It's a worthwhile question to ask, and brings us back to, again, as a business, why would you do this? Why would you get rid of your most important star who was bringing in more than 3 million viewers a night? And so there's a few different theories, and we can entertain them here. I don't have any inside knowledge. I don't know any more than anybody else other than to just tell you that, you know, yeah, I think Fox really caught him off guard. I think that was quite shocking. What we've learned is that he apparently just got the news moments before it was released on the air. So there was no sort of let's go back and forth on this. This was a done deal. We're told that it happened on Friday night, that the Murdochs made the decision with Suzanne Scott, who's now the CEO of the place, and they let him know on Monday. So he was prepping his show. He got the phone call from Suzanne, actually. Suzanne is as I said, the CEO of the company now, and was told that's it. So apparently he's hired a lawyer.
I want lawyers.
I would think they would pay him out through his contract. That's typically how it goes. I mean, when I was there and we decided to mutually part ways, they had to pay the rest of the contract because I had signed up to do a show and they have a clause in there. It's called pay or play.
I don't like this game.
So they have the right to take you off the air for whatever reason. They don't like your haircut today. They don't like the way you smile. They can take you off the air for any reason whatsoever, just so long as they pay you. And so I suspect that's the clause that they're putting into action, unless he's being let go for cause. But that certainly has not materialized in any way. Anyway, the big kahuna was this Dominion lawsuit that was out there. Smartmatic is lurking in the wings too, because they want even more money, like $2 point some odd billion. Dominion was asking for 1.6. they settled at nearly $800 billion, which I still say was kind of a small number, only because like it's Fox and they're making more than $2 billion a year. So they probably could have swung a little bit more. So if you really want to dig deep on the conspiracy stuff, and I don't know how far we should go with that, but some people are like, oh, maybe this was part of the deal. I don't think so, only because Dominion is a for-profit company. And when you're for-profit and the lawyers are for-profit, everybody wants to make money. You're not going to trade that because it's not of any value to you. There was something else though going on. Meanwhile, Maria Bartiromo, wonderful, wonderful woman. I worked with her both at CNBC and then of course at Fox. Maria Bartiromo had a producer named Abby Grossberg, and Abby then later went over to work on Tucker Carlson's show. And Abby sued as this Dominion thing unfolded, alleging that there was a ton of discrimination, that there was a ton of sort of harassment. The environment that she was working in was highly problematic on Tucker Carlson's show. So in that discovery process, you wonder if like more things came out. I mean, we know already, you've seen some of the texts that went back and forth. Tucker didn't seem to have a whole lot of faith in management. And he was complaining that, management was so bad they were going to take the whole place down because they didn't really understand where the viewer was at, et cetera, et cetera. One wonders if more stuff came out in that discovery process for this other lawsuit that might have just been enough for the Murdochs to say, okay, we really don't want this guy here anymore. Not only do we not want him, we don't want his producer, Justin Wells. So they sent both of them packing. It's honestly just shocking. And I think it's unfortunate because it didn't need to get to this. In other words, they had a guy who's super talented. I will say that for Tucker, super, super talented. He had his pulse, still has his pulse on sort of the feeling of America right now. And whether you agree with him, whether you disagree with him, he certainly had the ability to get some tune in, 3+ million viewers. So why would you not have managed him along the way so that you're not getting to a process like this? Then there are some that are saying, well, Dan Bongino's leaving too. Dan Bongino, let me just say, wonderful guy and super successful outside of Fox. Like he didn't really need Fox. Dan Bongino is extremely entrepreneurial. He's got a great podcast. He's got a radio show. He's one of the biggest investors in Rumble. I think that Dan is thinking much more big picture. So on that one, it's probably a case of, we just couldn't come to terms. And look, these contracts, I'll just tell you, like I've had them. I've looked at doing other networks with other contracts. They're very restrictive. And if you're somebody who wants to be a free bird like me, and you want to be able to just say what you want to say, and you want to be able to converse with your audience directly, then sometimes you got to go and go do it on your own. And we have that liberty to do this, which is why I think you're going to see a whole lot more from Tucker. And I think that Tucker has tremendous opportunities ahead of him. I mean, sure, he could go join another network. I don't think they're ever going to be able to pay him the what did they say? It was $20 million he was getting at Fox.
A lot of money.
Wow. So that was real money. I don't think the other networks are going to be able to compete with that. And that's okay. Like in this environment, why not take that chance? Why not build something of your own that's more meaningful maybe to you as an individual? But I will say this, the whole thing is just bizarre. Who are they going to put in his place? I don't know. I mean, Jesse Waters is certainly a contender, and there may be someone that we're not even thinking of yet. Dan Bongino probably would have been great if that whole thing hadn't blown up just a few days ago. I wonder if they knew when they got rid of Bongino that they were about to get rid of Tucker. Something happened. And that's what we all want to find out. Actually, coming up on the program, the woman who is the managing editor for MRC TV, this is Media Research Center, and they study media as a whole. She has some theories on this, so we're going to get to her in a moment, Brittany Hughes. But meanwhile, Don Lemon.
Not him again.
Another one who is out the door. I'm not surprised. Are you surprised? Don Lemon was, I'm sorry, and I don't mean to be overly blunt, but he didn't have the talent, shall we say, of a Tucker Carlson. I don't think he had the intellect of a Tucker Carlson. I think he kind of just skated by making these outrageous comments for years on the program he had at night. And then when Chris Lick came in to take over CNN and say, okay, we want to button this up and have something that's trying to seem as though we care about both sides, it wasn't really going to work with Don Lemon because he was so implanted in this in this kind of rhetoric that was very, very anti anyone on the right. And he's just had a series of blunders and a series of massive mistakes. I mean, consider what he said about Nikki Haley, trying to suggest that she's not in her prime because she can't have kids anymore. I mean, it was just a wild, stupid thing to say. And I'm like, where are the women? Why wasn't he fired then?
Nikki Haley isn't in her prime. Sorry. When a woman is considered to be in her prime in her 20s and 30s and maybe 40s.
What do you talk? Wait.
That's not according to me.
Prime for what?
It depends. I mean, it's just like prime. If you look it up, if you Google when is a woman in her prime, it'll say 20s, 30s, and 40s.
This makes no sense. You make no sense.
I mean, women need to do a better job at this. You look at how well men are doing, saying no on Anheuser-Busch. I'd like to see a little bit more of that action from women, whether it's Don Lemon or Nike shoes, by the way. Anyway, Don is gone. It took that interview with Vivek, who, by the way, is going to be on the show this week, so stay tuned. Vivek, who's running for president, Ramaswamy. I hope I said that right. I'll definitely say it right by the time we get to Friday. Anyway, it kind of went off the rails, and that was apparently what did it. So he's done after 17 years. There's also, just an aside, an NBC executive that is also out the door. His last name was Shell, so everybody's like, oh, we're shell-shocked. He's gone. I mean, lots and lots and lots of changes. And it's all coming, of course, before 2024. Speaking of 2024, you know who's in the running? Joe Biden. Despite the fact that, 70% of Americans don't want him to run.
Yikes.
Joe Biden is throwing his hat in the ring again.
That's why I'm running for re-election.
Is he serious?
Oh, apparently the guy can't take a hint. Now, I'm not surprised. Look, he told us back when he ran before that he was just going to be a one-term president. I didn't buy that. And at the time, I certainly would have to assume that they need to put him in there. They need to put him in there because who else have they got? I mean, we're talking about one thin bench. Kamala can't do it. We all know that. Pete Buttigieg can't do it. We all know that. Gavin Newsom, look, he can't do it. We all know that. So instead, we got the old guy. Forgive me, I'm not an ageist, by the way, but this guy is an old 80, right? Like an old 80.
He's dead, I think.
There's plenty of 80-year-olds that are like, great. They're like spring chickens. And then there's Joe Biden, who, by the way, couldn't talk that well when he was younger. And now, oh, gosh.
My younger sister used to be 3 years younger than me. Now she's 23 years younger. There's not a single solitary Biden man that is younger than any Biden woman.
What? It just keeps on getting worse. So he's running. He would actually be 86 years old. Can you imagine that? When he left office. We got to get some young people. Hello, where is everyone? I know politics is no fun. I know it's an awful, miserable, terrible business. I know that. But really, America, we need help here. We need good, young people that care about this country, because otherwise this is what we're left with, right? So Joe Biden's going to run again. And most likely he's probably going to be running against Donald Trump. I would say this, don't cut Trump out. I mean, you cannot underestimate him. This is the mistake they made in 2016. Democrats thought, great, it's Trump. We can win this. Hands down, no problem. That was obviously not the case. So I would advise them to be cautious, not underestimate Donald Trump. But in the meantime, and we'll talk to Brittany Hughes about this coming up. In the meantime, we also, as consumers, as voters, as Americans, we need to be cautious about what information is allowed out, because we saw what happened with the 51 spies. This was all orchestrated, do not forget, by now Secretary of State Antony Blinken, who called his friend, who was the ex-deputy CIA director, Mike Morrell, and said, hey, I need some help. Go get all your friends, John Brennan and the rest of them. Let's put together a big letter saying that we, as professionals in the intelligence community, ex-professionals in the intelligence community, believe that this is Russian intelligence. Actually, I don't think they said believe. They just said this is Russian intelligence. It has all the earmarks of this disinformation. Consequently, everything got shut down, right? Remember, the New York Post Twitter account got shut down. So many of my friends got their Twitter account shut down. I was in Facebook jail for a whole year. Wow. I mean, I've never seen anything like this. And I've been a journalist for as long as I can remember. I mean, going all the way back to 5th grade when I was writing for the local paper. I've been a journalist for a very long time. I have never seen this just restriction on speech. And I'm worried that you may see it happen all over again, because they'll say, and they'll have the excuse of, well, we don't want another January 6th. We don't want our democracy fundamentally changing. And by the way, we don't. Let me be extremely clear on that. We don't want that at all. But if you say we're not going to let certain information out because we don't want this candidate to win because it means we might lose our democracy, well, then aren't you losing your democracy in that process? Isn't that effectively what you're doing? I'd say so. Let me know what you think. Make a comment down below. I read all the comments I'm not kidding. I do. I read them all. So tell me what you think. Tell me what you think of the show. Make sure you subscribe. Make sure you hit the bell. Very, very important, especially in light of where we're heading right now. Another company that's in the news today. I told you this boycott over at Bud Light had legs, some very, very long legs. We learned, of course, that the vice president in charge of marketing at Bud Light, she decided to take a leave of absence. That's how it was framed. Well, another guy, someone named Daniel Blake, he's also someone who works at Bud Light in marketing, and he's been put on a leave of absence. So that's very interesting. They're having a few problems, shall we say, over in the marketing department because they made a fatal mistake. They thought they knew their audience better than the audience knows itself. And it's so wrong. There's a very interesting political analogy you can make here. I mean, Fox, I've joked, I think I sent around a meme. We'll show you the meme. Take a look at this meme. I've sent this around and I know a lot of you got a kick out of it, sort of comparing Fox and Bud Light. A friend of mine sent me this, and that's true to a certain extent. But, look, Fox has a deep bench. I mentioned Jesse Waters. They'll have other people that can go in to fill that time slot. But what are you going to do? It's Bud Light. How are you going to get your mojo back? How are you going to get your image back? I don't know as they really can necessarily. So many of you have reached out in the comments and you've said, look, I'm never, ever, ever drinking another Anheuser-Busch product again. So they have really burned themselves with their customer base. It's been reflected in the stock price as we watch it. And it's also been reflected in sales numbers. The latest sales show that Bud Light sales are down 17% in the most recent numbers. I mean, that's a big hit. On the plus side for the company, it has been edging back to almost where it was before the whole scandal started, but I think it's still going to have a long row ahead of it. I mean, you compare and contrast, say, with a company like Molson Coors, which has really been seeing a lot of strength in its stock price. And I think it tells you that investors are worried that this company really doesn't understand who it's serving, so to speak. Speaking of stock prices, look at what happened to Fox just the day this went down. I mean, they lost more than $500 million in value when they announced that Tucker would be leaving. They rallied back towards the end of the day. And if we look at shares where they were trading, midday on Tuesday, you saw Fox was still struggling a bit, trying to hang on to the flat line. The verdict's out. Just one more thing on Fox. Look, these things are hard for networks. I remember when they lost O'Reilly, I think they didn't quite know what to do. When they lost Megyn Kelly, they didn't quite know what to do. And they had like a rotating cast of characters in there. They were trying to put the 5, that popular show which airs at 5 p.m. They're trying to put it on at 9 o'clock. It didn't really work at 9 o'clock because it's a different kind of show that you're going to want for 9 o'clock than you want at 5 o'clock. These things just have a different feel. And you didn't have anyone there really in charge to help guide them and lead them and really show them what the programming could or would be. It was a fortunate time for them because they didn't have a lot of competition from anyone else. Newsmax, I can tell you, they are going wall to wall on this. They are milking it for all it's worth. Hey, former president, Donald Trump, just sat down with Greg Kelly last night to talk about Tucker Carlson. So look, Trump's no fool. He's going to use this as an opportunity. Newsmax is going to use this as an opportunity. And Tucker, if he's smart, will use this as an opportunity to do something else. Listen, we have the power right now. I think it's important we all remember that. We saw Matt Walsh, who's over at the Daily Wire. He announced that he's going to start putting his video on Twitter. I think that's a good idea because they'll let you put long form on there. I may do the same. So you can follow me on Twitter. Watch for that. We're going to start putting it up there too. There's many different platforms. I want you following me on as many as you possibly can, and I want to be on as many as I can. It's important right now, more so than ever. Okay, here to help us break down the insanity of this moment in time in the media, I'm so happy to welcome to the program Brittany Hughes. She is the managing editor of MRC TV. That's the Media Research Center. Brittany, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me on. I will do my best to try to make sense of this really tangled ball of yarn.
Okay, well, the Don Lemon one, I'm going to push that aside because I could see that one coming a million miles away. I want to go straight to Tucker. So that one, look, I was stunned. I used to work there. To me, what I thought was that, okay, they're doing everything and anything they can to protect the big kahuna, right, at 8 o'clock. That's all that matters. And they'll do whatever they need to do to protect him. And what we saw this week was, nope, that's not the case. They're not going to protect him. they're in fact booting him out the door in a pretty unceremonious way. He's going to be fine. Like, he's super talented. I have no doubt he might find it extremely liberating because, hey, guess what? You know, you can be independent nowadays and it's a whole lot of fun. But I'm just sort of surprised that Fox did this. Say, from a business standpoint, we've been talking about Bud Light. You got to kind of know your base audience. The base audience loved him. So how are people going to respond to this in your view?
It's kind of hard to tell what exactly they're thinking because, again, there's so much about this that we don't know, right? We're sort of lacking on the details. Was this completely Fox's call? Was this an internal argument that they had? We're not entirely sure. But what I can say with certainty, and what I think most Fox News viewers would agree with me on, is that this is a major blow to the primetime lineup. I mean, this was a top-rated show for a long time. Obviously, Tucker Carlson pulls millions of viewers, major fans. And so it's really hard to see their primetime lineup at all not suffering a blow from this. I think hopefully we will get more details as they emerge. It would be interesting, of course, I think, to everybody to hear Tucker's side of this and what he thinks. It didn't sound like he saw this coming either.
It sounded like it was total shock. I mean, as we understand it, he was totally preparing for his Monday show when he got the call. Look, I know how that goes. You know, I too was blindsided. And I think that when Fox wants to make a move, they do so in a very precise way. And they're acting with such precision. They kind of, you know, cut your legs out from under you. And you're like, wow, I didn't see that one coming. And I think he's still sort of asking questions like, why did this happen? And it surprises me only in that, look, he is a talented guy. Dan Bongino, another super talented guy, and they just parted ways with him as well. Maybe they just didn't come to terms. That's what Dan has said. And I believe that because he's super entrepreneurial and I think he wants to do other things. But I would just say, again, from a business standpoint, I'm looking at it going, I got some good talent here that really resonates with my viewers. Why do I want to get rid of them? Unless they blame Tucker for the whole Dominion thing, unless, as some conspiracy theorists suggest, and I don't want to entertain this too much, but some people are like, wait, was that part of the deal with Dominion? I don't think so, because I think Dominion just wanted the money. But that's another thing that's been floated. And then the other thing is that people say, well, maybe he said some really bad stuff about management in some of those text messages, and that just hasn't, you know, made its way to the public yet. I don't know.
Yeah, it's hard to tell from a Fox perspective because, again, until we have more details, maybe they have some sort of 4D chess game plan that the rest of us just aren't in on. What I do think is very interesting, though, is, of course, how the left is immediately reacting with glee. I mean, honestly, to see some of their reactions, like over at The View for like the 4 people that still watch that show, I mean, it's almost like the man died and they're happy about it or something. But one thing that I really want to key in on is, I think, believe it or not, even a blind squirrel finds a nut every now and then. AOC actually gave the game away in a social media post that she put out yesterday. Of course, she's super excited. She hates Tucker Carlson. But what she said was very key. She said, deplatforming works. So you have to remember, regardless of why Fox made this decision, regardless of what led to this, the left and the establishment media, they don't hate Tucker because he says things they don't like. They hated Tucker because he had the platform and the audience. Yeah. It's not enough to disagree with you. They want to shut you up. And so for the left,
sure. And by the way, I just want to jump in. AOC, and we did this yesterday on the program. I pointed to some of the sound that she had put out over the weekend. She did an interview with Jen Psaki over at MSNBC, but which, by the way, has their own sort of insanity and conspiracy theories that they're chasing down. How much do we have to hear about that Trump Russia dossier? Look, Jen Psaki, and she sat down, and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez was calling for government oversight of Fox, conservative media, and specifically Tucker Carlson. So you wonder behind the scenes if also maybe the Murdochs were like, hey, maybe we're pushing it too far. We're going into another election season. Let's try and just, manage this in a way that maybe makes some people happy. I don't know. I mean, again, I would just point back to Bud Light and say, like, look, you guys better know what you're doing because you do risk alienating a lot of your viewers along the way. But the deplatforming thing, that's interesting. It works and it doesn't. I mean, I would only say this. The media landscape is changing tremendously. Sure, on Fox News, anybody could go in at 8 o'clock. Literally, you could put anybody in there and they would succeed. And that is in part thanks to the success of Bill O'Reilly for many, many, many years, who created this tremendous sort of tune in, right? The 60 Minutes, same kind of thing. Although sometimes these days they need the sporting event to come ahead of time on Sunday nights, but you have that built-in audience. And it takes a lot. This could be the straw that breaks the camel's back, though, but it takes a lot to turn them away. So I guess so long as you put someone that is still conservative, that still has some popularity. I mean, like Jesse Waters, for example. I mean, there's other people they could put in that has that appeal. Maybe they're fine. But with the knowledge that it's fractured enough that Tucker also will be fine, because Tucker can go start something on his own. And I think a ton of people will flock to it.
Well, again, you pointed back to Bud Light. I would use them as an example. Maybe you draw in some new people, maybe you keep some people, but it depends on how many people you tick off in the process. The thing that Tucker and the thing that many people have going for them right now is as much as the social media landscape is changing, and obviously over at the Media Research Center, we are very concerned about censorship and people being able to get their voices out there. But places like Twitter, ironically, have actually started to open back up to free speech. Twitter just rolled out a brand new long form video capability for people. So I definitely would caution gleeful leftists that are very excited about this move. Again, Tucker Carlson is not dead. He is extremely talented. He has millions of loyal viewers. And I don't think that this is at all the last that we're going to be hearing from him. Or as you pointed out, obviously, Dan Bongino. These are big personalities. And it's not just because they have an ability to deliver. It's not just because they are talented. They're also saying things that millions of people believe in. They are asking questions that millions of people are asking. It's not like a whole bunch of people that didn't already believe what they believed started tuning into Tucker Carlson and magically changed their minds. These are people that were looking for someone to give a voice to what they already believed. And that's what Tucker Carlson did.
Yeah, we're talking about Brittany Hughes. She is the managing editor of MRCTV, Media Research Center, which just does so much to try and make sure that there's some balance out there in this world and that conservatives have some representation in the media as well. Just a great organization. So thanks for what you guys do. Let me turn to Don Lemon because, look, I mean, Don Lemon, I don't know why the guy was on TV for as long as he was. I remember him like years ago, maybe on Headline News, and it was fine. And then he started doing this opinion show. His opinions were really not that well informed. It was just, it was awful. They figured out that wasn't working. It was rating poorly. They put him in the morning. He's a typical TV guy who doesn't want to share the space with anyone. Certainly not two girls on his, I mean, it was just a disaster from the beginning. He said a lot of things along the way. He angered his colleagues. He said horrible stuff about Nikki Haley. But apparently this interview with Vivek was what was the straw that broke the camel's back. That just did it. Like management was done. I mean, I would have been done after the Nikki Haley stuff. I might have been done like ages ago, but hey, I don't run the place. Your thoughts on Don?
Well, I can tell you why he was still on air. His sexual orientation and his race, quite frankly. Otherwise, he would have been booted right alongside Brian Stelter, who is a potato. So there was really nothing particularly special about Don Lemon. He ticked off absolutely everybody, including his own audience, including his own colleagues. If you ever tuned into the morning show, which I don't know why you would, but if you did, you essentially saw Poppy Harlow squirming in her seat every single day. I felt quite bad for her.
I did too. I've known Poppy for years, by the way. She and I, like 20 years ago, we worked together. She's a great woman, great reporter and journalist. And I felt for her. I'm like, oh my gosh, like, how do you have to sit next to that all day?
Yes, it was pretty bad. So again, whether or not this interview with Vivek, personally, I watched it. Did I think that it was a great look for him? Absolutely not. Did I think that was at all the same as what he had to say about Nikki Haley, saying that she was past her prime because apparently she wasn't in her childbearing years anymore or something? It was absolutely ridiculous. This is a man that has had a storied history of saying things that were not only offensive to people that didn't share his ideology, but were offensive to people that would otherwise agree with him. He was open mouth, insert foot now for years. So again, what's interesting to see, the left's reaction, the media's reaction to Tucker Carlson, which of course is like Christmas morning, throw the confetti, fantastic, versus Don Lemon, where it's kind of almost an apologetic, well, did he make some blunders? Sure. But at least he was talented and we'll be sad to see him go. So they give the game away when it comes to which side of the fence they fall on. For sure.
There's a ton of bias
based on this.
You made a good point. It's opening up a little bit. Here's my question to you. Does it stay open? Or as we go into 2024 and increasingly Look, anything can happen in politics, right? But increasingly, it's looking like Donald Trump's going to be the Republican nominee. So if Donald Trump is the Republican nominee, and we know how much the left really doesn't want him to have that spot, it's a threat to democracy, et cetera, then are we in a situation, Brittany, where they shut down one whole side all over again?
I think that no matter what, I think this is going to be true, but particularly if Donald Trump is the Republican nominee, I think that you are going to see exactly what we saw before, which is a hard push for censorship, a hard push for making sure that Americans only hear one side of any given story. Again, that's what you have to focus on with Tucker Carlson. The left doesn't hate him because of what he said. The left hated him because they wanted him to shut up. And if you are at all right-leaning, that's exactly what they want to do to you. They want to shut you up, because this is not just about getting vengeance on someone that makes them mad. This is about controlling the narrative. And they're going to push for that come hell or high water. And I think we're going to see those efforts ramp up even more heading into 2024.
Brittany Hughes, thank you so much for your time today. Very, very good insight from Brittany Hughes. Make sure you go over to MRC TV or MRC.org, newsbusters.org. Newsbusters is an easy one to remember. These guys are just all over it, all over the bias. It's so good to see you. Thank you, my friend.
Thank you.
It was nice to see her. Look, I mean, this is just crazy. Like, we're in a crazy time, and it's been bad for a while, and it's probably going to get more challenging. I mean, on the one hand, I am so excited. By the way, have you seen how much this YouTube channel has been growing? I thank all of you for that.
Now I'm famous.
Share these clips as much as you can. Share the shorts as much as you can, because it just exposes this content to more and more people. And that's how we really get the message out. So it's kind of like a very organic growth method, and one where, you know, we may not have the platform, so to speak. This is the Trish Regan channel, but it's not Fox Business where I used to be. But nonetheless, I know how much you care, and I know how much you trust me to bring all sides to you and to bring you the truth. And that's critical at this moment in time. So make sure you subscribe, make sure you hit the bell, and make sure you share it, like it, comment, do all of that stuff. I'm not going to let the day go by, as always, without showing you my favorite little guy in the whole wide world. And it happens to be my dog.
Well, that was unexpected.
My puppy. I'm always going to call him a puppy. This is Fluffy. If you haven't met Fluffy, take a peek there. He is a ferocious watchdog. He's very strong. Actually, I was just at the vet the other day, and they were telling me, wow, like, he's got great muscle tone, his hind legs. It's very rare, apparently, for a Maltese. Often they're like little sticks. Not my guy. I mean, he goes up and down the stairs all the time, and he's running around. I got kids that, you know, kind of keep him on the go. But I would say this. I do think that he eats right. I've taken this on as a priority. I met with Dr. Dennis Black a while back. He's a naturopathic doctor that cares a lot about human health, but also cares about dog health. And he thought, why aren't we doing supplements for dogs? Because it's really important that they have the same access to vitamins, to nutrients, to amino acids, to proteins, to all the things that you need, digestive enzymes, to really ensure that you have a long and healthy life. And so all I do is put a little bit of rough greens on Fluffy's food every single night with his dinner. He loves it. I mean, this stuff tastes, apparently, I haven't tried it, but it tastes really, really, really good, because now he went from like kind of a so-so eater to a very happy eater. Dr. Black has said that, like, this stuff makes dead food come alive. This is really the transition, if you would, or it makes all that brown food become green. It's called Rough Greens, RUFF greens.com/Trish. Go there for your free Jumpstart trial bag today. It'll be at your house in just a few days. You just have to pay for shipping. It's a free Jumpstart trial. Let me know what you think, how it's working out for your dog, and send me a picture of your dog. I love seeing pictures of dogs. I'm going to put up some more of Fluffy maybe in the comments as well, so you can see that. But again, roughgreens.com/Trish. Go there today for your free Jumpstart trial. We have a big show coming up this week. You know, we're going to continue our coverage here of what's going on in the media industry, but there's a lot more now, as it looks increasingly as though Biden and Trump are going to be squaring off for 2024. Look, as we look at the field of candidates, I got to tell you, Vivek Ramaswamy, he is a really interesting guy. He is a tremendous intellect. I've spoken to him before, and I'm always like, what? I'm so intent on listening to him that I totally forget to ask a question. Hopefully I don't do that this week. He's going to be on in just a couple days. So make sure you tune in for that. He's got a lot of great ideas on our economy, which I love. He's a former entrepreneur. I mean, he's still an entrepreneur, but he's had some tremendous success with his companies. And now he's like, you know what? I want to do something. I want to do something for this country. This is what I'm saying. We need people. We need young people to get involved and do something. Vivek is a great example of that. So he's going to join the show. We're going to talk to him. He has a lot of thoughts. I actually think he wrote a book. That's why I knew him. He wrote a book called Woke Capitalism. He's calling out all the nonsense, all this ESG stuff. Anyway, tune in for that. Great to have you here as always, and we'll see you tomorrow.